Welcome to Tony Martignetti Nonprofit Radio coverage of BBCon 2012. We're outside Washington, D.C. at the Gaylord Convention Center. And my guests now are Karen Yeager-Collins, John Murphy, and Chris Coletta. Karen is technical strategy consultant for the Zuri Group. And then actually seated next to Karen is Chris Coletta. He's social media coordinator for Conservation International. And at the end is John Murphy, CEO of the Zuri Group. Please, Chris, why don't you acquaint listeners with what Conservation International work is?
Thanks. Yeah, Conservation International is, as the name implies, an international nonprofit conservation organization. We work in about 40 different countries. Our mission is to protect nature for the benefit of people. Human well-being is sort of at the heart of what CI does. So, protecting forests because they help us fight climate change, or, protecting our oceans because they give us fish and, products and things of that nature. So that's what CI is all about.
Okay, and what's the annual budget there, roughly?
About $100 million. And if I'm wrong on that, GuideStar will slap me down, but I think that's about right.
That's right. Nobody listens to the show anyway, so you're safe. Nobody listens here. John Murphy, what lies would you like to tell about the Zuri Group? What's the work there?
Zuri Group's an online technology agency focusing on nonprofit success. We've been partners with Blackbaud for 5 years and work primarily with their customers, helping them be successful and filling gaps in their organizational needs.
Okay. Karen, what your seminar topic for the three of you was taking your end-of-year campaign outside the box. It's very timely because we're in the beginning of the fourth quarter. What's the first piece of advice you have for building the end-of-year campaign?
What we're trying to promote is that a lot of people have their end-of-year campaign. One, we're begging them to plan for their end-of-year campaign as opposed to coming up on November 1st and not actually having a plan to go out. So the biggest part about it is making that plan. The other thing is...
When should we start that plan?
Well, Chris, when did you start your campaign planning? Chris, is
we started our campaign plan for this year weeks ago, and it is today, October 1, as we are taping. So
you started planning just a few weeks ago?
Probably the beginning of August is when we sort of sat down as a group in earnest and really went for it. Or maybe even earlier would be optimal if you had the time. Not everyone does, but certainly, by this time of year, hopefully you're pretty well along. If not, it's okay. There's still time.
There's stuff you can do last minute.
There's definitely things that you can do now, and you'll be okay. But let's get a move on.
All right.
So that's what we're trying to promote, is that planning and to plan early. And then the outside of the box thing is, what can you do to make sure that people choose to donate to you? Because you are going to be inundated. Everybody has an end-of-year campaign. So how to think outside the box to get you noticed, and then ultimately to cultivate that donor to your organization as opposed to all the other ones that are filling their inboxes or filling their social media news feeds and things like that.
Okay. John, then beyond the plan, how do we start to get some of these outcomes that Karen is talking about?
Executing the plan, obviously, right? So if you have to plan, and most organizations start their plan hopefully after last year. So January, February rolls around and you're starting to look then at what you're going to do that holiday season. And then you start implementing the plan. It usually kicks off right in the beginning of November. So organizations that look at holiday fundraising are looking pretty much November 1 through December 31. So that it can include Black Friday type emails all the way through year-end tax giving.
All right. So what are some of the elements of this plan? Since the planning is so important, John, why don't you continue?
It's really a planning calendar. So you really start with a planning calendar, and you look at your database, and you're looking at how you're approaching all of your constituents. So you're addressing them with direct mail, or you're addressing them with email, or you're addressing them with phone calls, or some type of event for a holiday season. And that calendar then is usually across all the organization, and we're seeing organizations taking their direct marketing efforts and putting them under a single point of focus so that they don't get multiple people overlapping and spending extra resources during the time.
Okay. And Chris, how is some of this playing out at Conservation International? How are you doing some of the things that John is especially John is talking about? We know you've already done your planning. How is this work? What John is talking about working at CI?
Right. Well, certainly. I sort of want to stress that, in our talk, talked a lot about what CI did last year. We worked, intensely with Zeri Group, on some various things. One of the first things that we did is we actually built a map where people could go online and, sort of show their support for conservation, and not just show their support, but actually say why conservation matters to them. I liked that because it was very on brand. We need nature, and you're going to tell us why. And by the way, when you do that, of course, we're also going to get your name and your email address and your interests, because you've told us why you care about nature, and your Twitter handle if you decided to post it. So making my life as a social media coordinator really great, because now I can go and I can, match some of those folks with their Twitter handles, personally thank them, get them on board, and hopefully start a relationship that, eventually, if they get enough content from us, if they get enough good stuff, we can build a relationship so they'll become a donor.
Let's just pursue that a little more, whether it has to do with end-of-year campaign or not. Building from a new Twitter relationship. You get a handle, you have the information that you just described about the person and their interests. How do you take that relationship beyond Twitter?
Well, so social media in general, I sort of think of it as, you're getting someone to say that they're interested in you, whether they follow you on Twitter, like you on Facebook, follow a board on Pinterest, or, look at your photos on Instagram, whatever it's sort of platform agnostic, whatever it is, they're there because they've signaled an interest. Then you had to ask someone out on a date if they've signaled their interest. So you actually, start sending them things about your organization. And hopefully, if you are giving them relevant content to what they care about, not what you think they need to know, but what you know that they care about because you've done, your research, and you've done your, hopefully, either, asked people what they care about, or you've done focus groups, or, in some other way, following sort of best practices, research, and, they get interested. And then you can ask them, hey, have you signed up for CI's newsletter? Some of them will sign up for CI's newsletter. 6 months, they'll get 6 newsletters, and some, start to get campaign emails, and they get enough campaign emails and they like what they hear, then they're going to make a donation. It's all about getting your foot in the door with a person, and then, treating them, sort of in a very human, personal way.
Okay. Karen, you want to say more about that? You're nodding off a lot. You want to add to what
Absolutely. So what Kristen has done with that map, it was called Connect for Conservation, is what we did for that pre-campaign for them last year. Not only did they get their Twitter handles, but they also got, like he was saying, to expand upon what the conservation connection was, there was options for health, there was options for climate, there was options for, all different types of connections. And so what Chris was able to do and what he was speaking on is now we know that not only they're interested in conservation organizations, but they're also interested specifically in climate. So therefore, that was how Chris was able to personally thank them on Twitter, but then now we know that climate is their main concern. So the way that you cultivate and, as Chris said, date that constituent and turn them into a donor is to listen to what that attraction is to the organization and continue to hit on those spots, so that then all of a sudden they realize that they're not just somebody that has pockets that they can give to, but they're somebody that you care about and you want to educate, and therefore that makes them want to better your organization and better your mission. And that's what we're trying to do here, is not just continue bringing people into us, but to better our mission and to solve our mission. And that's how you do it, through those touch points of social media.
Okay, and then let's bring this back to the end-of-year campaign. What would we then do specifically with that person, given the information that we know?
Absolutely. So with the end of year campaign, what we're stressing with that social media point is, if you have somebody that you're reaching out to via social media, you need to make sure that they know when you touch them in other organizations or other outlets, that they know that it's for the same campaign. So the branding around that is really important. So if your hashtag in Twitter is going to a certain level of detail, then that needs to also follow through on Facebook, and the Facebook branding needs to follow the branding that you have in your emails, and your email branding needs to be on the landing page or the donate page that you have on your website. So we're really trying to make sure people understand that it's not just sending them to the donate form that's been on your site for 11 months. It's sending them to the donate form that's branded towards what your campaign is, regardless of whether it's end of year or not, so that you can really bring them in and let them know that everything you're doing is targeted towards something, whether it's an end of year campaign or whether it's a campaign to save the ocean. So that's really where that planning comes into place as well, is that you make sure that all of your touch points are branded towards what you're trying to do.
John, you want to say a little more about the importance of branding and as it relates to end of year campaigning or not, but just the importance of branding?
Branding your cause in general, or just
well, certainly toward fundraising goals.
I think when you brand, so if you're branding this specific campaign and then it's really to attract a new base, or in this case it was more online people, right? So you're trying to grow your list through these different types of brands and appealing to people to where what strikes them and what's going to make them react to you, so then you can then go on and foster that relationship going forward.
Okay.
And so I think one of the things that Conservation International did well last year is they thought of a brand that spoke their mission. So it was people need nature to thrive. And so that was the brand that was underneath Conservation International for their end of year campaign, which was so fantastic because it spoke their mission, but then it also gave them a way to brand the unique pieces that were connected to the end of year campaign to a smaller micro campaign that was still a part of the entire organization's goal and mission overall. And so they picked something, and then that theme carried through all of their channels so that people knew that when they were getting something that said people need nature to thrive, when they hit the website, it also said people need nature to thrive. And they were able to kind of carry on that slogan throughout all channels so that they could, whenever they had a touch point or whenever somebody interacted with Conservation International, it stayed on that campaign and gave them a really fresh look without stepping away from their brand.
Yeah, John, it sounds to me like leadership is critical in this, because we're talking about different departments working together.
Exactly.
Talking about we're striking to the heart of the mission.
Yes,
of the
and
organization.
and leadership at nonprofits is sometimes very like a university, where you have siloed leadership, where you have different organizations that are responsible for certain budgets, and sometimes they don't play nice with each other. And you can see organizations where they do have overlap, and so to have a unified front within an organization where they are looking to a goal going forward for this type of campaign is very important.
So it's got to come from the top.
And it's usually not the top, though, right? It's the top saying, here's your number, meet your number, but it's really usually 2 or 3 levels below the top where it actually gets implemented, where the plan actually gets put into place, and that person is unifying the team to get the results. And so the top is sort of, they want the end number, and when they don't meet it, then there's things to pay.
Yeah.
But that is a struggle that we see quite often in nonprofits. And so we at Zuri Group try to help also bringing that together, bringing fresh ideas, bringing the best practices that we're seeing from the hundreds of clients that we're working with that have the year-end campaigns, and then helping them get through those hurdles and get through those humps.
Okay. Go ahead, please.
I was just going to say that, this sort of two conversations that we're having, about branding and about, leadership, in the case of Conservation International, specifically last year's year-end campaign, are sort of one and the same. Having a brand, a strong brand, is important for any organization, whether, is a for-profit or a nonprofit or, just a kid with lemonade stand, on the side of the street. And so, we really try and cultivate that 12 months out of the year. And people need nature to thrive is actually sort of CI's tagline. We've sort of adopted it. And so when it came time to, do a year-end campaign, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Like, we literally just made our tagline the theme of our year-end campaign, and then we put it on everything because that's what we do and that's what we believe. And so, this sort of leadership-approved idea, sort of the core CI messaging is what we call it, internally. You just have to, tweak it a little bit and, do some fun design things and, make sure it sort of has a visually consistent identity and that you're telling compelling stories, and all of a sudden you have yourself a year-end campaign.
And the thing that I like about that is that if you do have that trouble of siloed, if you do have a campaign that has a specific theme, even if your direct mail team is on a completely different side of the building or is, not even in the same office building as your media team, then because you have that common theme, even if you are siloed and you're working through those blocks that you're trying to break through, if you have that common theme that gets hit onto your direct mail piece or gets put onto your social media board or gets set up on your donation form, all of a sudden, at least it looks upon appearance that you are branded and cohesive, even if on the back end you're working with Zuri Group or working with somebody else to get that strategy together so that all of those silos are speaking to each other.
Okay. Karen, what else should we be saying about bring it back to end-of-year campaigns that we haven't talked about yet?
One of the things that we're trying to do, so the title of this talk is Thinking Outside the Box. So we're trying to get people to look at what they're doing now and maybe do something a little creative. So we're going to talk about a couple of organizations, especially Conservation International, and how they did something unique that helped them stand apart from all of the other organizations that are going to be fighting for the same donors, because you know there's only so many people out in the world, and I know we have over 7 billion, but of those, you all are going to be fighting with organizations, not just the same ones of your mission, but just all organizations for those donors, and there's only so many dollars out there, and you want to win as many as possible for you. So what can you do to be unique? And so we're going to give some ideas, and then our hope during the session is to get people to brainstorm together so that maybe they leave the session with that one piece that's going to make them creative.
Now, are there more ideas that we haven't talked about yet that you plan to share tomorrow?
Absolutely.
Well, okay. Well, who wants to throw another one out?
I'll go ahead, since
please,
we're going to be talking about some of our stuff. Just one of the things that we did, everyone has a light box at the end of the year. You go to an organization's website and it pops up and, it says either, donate or, take this, activist action.
Do you know what a light box is?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, sure.
No,
So let's back up then.
Okay,
So
I have to explain why we're back up, because on Tony Martignetti Nonprofit Radio, we have Jargon Jail. And I would hate
I am in Jargon Jail,
as the youngest, maybe the youngest, I'm not sure, but we'd hate to have anybody in Jargon Jail. So quick parole, if you'll explain what a light box is.
All right. So I will exercise my get out of jail free card and say that a light box, if think of it as like sort of a non-annoying pop-up. If you go to a website, if you go to most nonprofit websites, I suspect you'll see some right now as they're getting ready for the end of the year campaign, will pop up sort of, transparently, over the main page, and it will have, a message. And that message might be donate, it might be please take this action, like save the whales. CI doesn't really do save the whale stuff. I don't know why I said that, but it just sort of came to mind.
Whatever.
We all love whales.
Okay.
And you can X out of it and just go to the main site.
Okay.
So you'll see a lot of that at year end, because we're trying to get folks' attention right off. We don't want them coming to our website and doing other things.
Okay.
We want them paying attention to our campaign.
John has something to add. Throw in quickly.
Well, I was just going to say a light box is a very good year-end strategy. I mean, as far as gathering email addresses and growing your list prior to year-end to give you new people to connect with as part of your year-end plan, Lightbox has been very successful.
Okay. Go ahead, Chris. You want to continue?
Yeah, so I'll be quick. So it's, sort of a tried and true strategy using the Lightbox. What we did is, we had designed for us a Lightbox where it was sort of tiled photos of, both people and, biodiversity, species, animals. And they literally started disappearing when you came to our site. Oh. It said, I believe, ignore them and they'll go away. That is using sort of an old classic and just putting a little bit of a creative twist on it, and that was an extremely successful both acquisition and fundraising tool for us because it's so emotionally powerful.
That's very clever. Ignore them and they'll go away. Very clever.
And just little things like that is what we want to really stress. At our panel is it doesn't have to necessarily be something crazy. You don't need Bo the Clown, sort of running all over your fundraising marketing, things. You just need, some clever ideas that are on brand that, sort of expand on, best practices, that the industry that, you'll get to hear, places like BBCon.
Okay. John, you want to wrap up? We just have a minute or so because you have to depart shortly. So I'll give you the parting words around end of year campaign.
I think if you don't have an end-of-year campaign, you need one, and you need to plan and execute it. And the creative strategies are the the sizzle to the steak, right? So you need to do the creative strategy to drive and grow your campaign's awareness and get people more excited. And in this case, last year was very successful, and I think it tapped into a different audience than your standard nonprofit donating audience. And I think also to remember as part of your year-end campaign is you don't necessarily only have to ask for money. You can ask for people to volunteer and participate in your organization in other ways as well.
That was John Murphy. He's the CEO of Zuri Group, and seated next to him is Chris Coletta, social media coordinator for Conservation International, and next to me is Karen Yeager-Collins, technical strategy consultant for the Zuri Group. I want to thank all three of you for being guests.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
It's been a real pleasure. Thank you. This is Tony Martignetti, nonprofit radio coverage of BBCon 2012.